Welcome back, guys. Week 15 of our season is in the books, and the streak is no more as we were defeated by none other than the San Francisco 49ers. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those notifications down below, and let's get straight into talking about what happened in that last game. Although we are upset that we ended up on the losing end of the 42-35 battle, this was a poetic end to our win streak, as it was the Niners that we started this streak with all the way back in week 4. And to see how it all came down to the very last play, we have to start from the very beginning. Our Cardinals were the first with the ball, and Kyler Murray, who was not available in these teams' first clash, began the game throwing for over 120 yards. He would lead that initial drive down to the edge of field goal range, and it would be our kicker, Matt Prater, who would send up his 51-yard field goal try, and it would be no good, as it never got inside the uprights. A costly miss on his only try of the day, but he would go 5 for 5 on extra points. So that would give San Francisco's offense their first chance with the ball, and immediately we saw the true dominance of Christian McCaffrey. He was very well contained in their first matchup, but he got back to his normal routine today, combining for over 160 yards running and receiving, and he would not only cap off this initial drive by getting into the end zone, but he would also find the end zone a second time late in the first half with this monster play where he broke off 2 tackles and ran 72 yards for the score. He wasn't the only running back with a big day, however, as it was our own Tyson Williams who had a massive performance in which he picked up our first touchdown of the game, but he also ended up totaling 130 all-purpose yards as he broke off this insane 73-yard catch and run to tie up the game late. We also would be remiss if we didn't mention the 49er fullback Kyle Juszczyk, who missed our previous clash with injury, was the man who found himself in the end zone with a touchdown today as well. Both squads settled into this game after the early momentum swings, and we immediately saw the dominance of the reigning Defensive Player of the Year on display, as Nick Bosa took over in the trenches. He got home an astounding 4 times, and even when he wasn't getting home, he was pressuring the passer and wrecking plays with his presence. One of the most decisive ones of this game was this play, where he didn't exactly ruin it, as Murray delivered the perfect long ball to his rookie receiver Michael Wilson, who in his own right had a very productive day, as he brought in 4 for just under 80 yards. But the collision with Murray after the throw would end up injuring our QB, removing him for the remainder of the game. So that meant, from that point on, we would be putting our faith once more into Colt McCoy. We saw him lead us well from the beginning portion of the year and did so today as well, putting up a monster stat line, which saw him throw for over 400 yards and throw 4 touchdowns. And the first of those would come just 3 plays into his performance, as he would zip the ball straight into his young tight end, Trey McBride, who came away with a physical grab for the score. But McBride was not settling there. He was a threat all day long, as he went over 110 yards on the day, and he brought in a total of 3 touchdown receptions. Now, this QB adjustment completely changed the narrative on the battle, as now it was Brock Purdy as the more trusted signal caller. And he had a much better performance than in their prior meeting, as he threw for near 300 yards, tossed in 2 scores, and continued to find his playmakers. And it actually seems like the perfect moment to discuss those previously mentioned playmakers. And one of their biggest glue pieces is their best pure receiver, Brandon Ayuk. He only brought in 3, but one of the best completions on the day was this massive reception, which he ended up going for 33 to set them up for an eventual Jake Moody field goal to move the score to 17. But he was not perfect on the day, as he also missed one from 55 yards out, so there was absolutely no give in the kicking department. And the last playmaker of note for San Fran was, of course, their quote-unquote wide back, Deebo Samuel. He brought in 8 on the day, crossing the 75-yard mark, and he was also the one who brought Purdy's second touchdown pass in to move their point total to 35 early in the 4th. And one of our most underrated weapons in Rondale Moore also had a great day, as he brought in 5 catches for just under 90 yards, and he made just such incredible receptions, whether it was holding on through contact or displaying pure athleticism. Now, this game wasn't all offense, as both teams had defensive standouts. One of the Niners' best performers was the all-pro safety Talanoa Hufanga, who seemed to be everywhere, and he ended up wrapping up a Cardinal on 7 separate occasions. Behind Bosa, their second best pass rusher was the veteran Arik Armstead. He ended his day with 7 tackles, the majority of them being solo, and he also dropped McCoy twice for sacks. We did not have as much success as they did in that phase of the game, as we only finished with 2 sacks on the day, with the first coming from our pair of outside linebackers Dennis Gardick and BJ Ojulari, as they both won off the edge and met at Purdy to force a field goal try. And our second sack came from LJ Collier, another underrated performer for us, and he was quick to break through the protection and make the big time play late in this matchup. Now, before we get to the ending sequences, we have to talk about the former Falcon, Isaiah Oliver. He had a great day overall, finishing with 7 tackles, and he even got himself a big-time interception late in the first half to ensure our red zone trip would result in nothing. But his day was not done there, as he would benefit from the start of our late-game excitement, as it would be the second-year edge rusher Drake Jackson who got to McCoy and put a hit on him that would jar the ball loose, and who else but Oliver would get there to scoop it up and take it 73 yards for the go-ahead score. From that moment on, we knew no play could be wasted, so it was time to look for Hollywood. He took over on these late drives, amassing 150 yards with so many impressive catches, and he even brought in this 56-yard bomb to put on the pressure. And as our offense started closing in on the touchdown that could send this to OT, there was only one man who could be the one to stop us. A guy who was dominant all day, finishing with double-digit tackles, being a menace in coverage, and that man was Fred Warner. He would nab a pick off McCoy as he tried to do too much as he threw it across body, but we continued to fight and got one more shot. On the final play, we took our end zone shot for McBride, but Warner would come away with yet another interception to seal this game and bring the poetic end to our massive win streak. After the loss, we immediately went to the medical center to figure out our injuries. It looks like the broken ribs that our center for a hold suffered will be keeping him out of action for 4 weeks, which would have him miss the wild card game, unless we earn the bye. And the bigger story is Kyler Murray's upper arm fracture will have him out for 3 weeks, which would mean he should be healthy for the playoffs. It could have been a lot worse, so we can breathe there, but now we know this is once again Colt McCoy's team for the final 3 games of the season. And that bye may not be out of the question, as looking at the league standings now, the Ravens are currently the best team in the league with a 12-2 record, with the 3 teams behind them at 11-3 are the Cowboys, Chiefs, and of course us. So the Chiefs and Ravens are not our problem, as they are in the AFC, and with us and Dallas tied with the same record, we need to have at least 1 game up, as a tie will do us no good due to our loss to them back in week 3. And while we're looking at the league, let's take a moment to review our division specifically. Obviously, we know that we are leading the way at 11-3. Seattle is sitting in second place at 9-5. 49ers, who just defeated us, sit at third with a 7-7 record, and the bottom feeders are the Rams at 4-10. Looking at the past few weeks for these teams, the Seahawks, the only team who still has the possibility of taking the division from us, and they have been on a roll to keep themselves close with 4 straight close games, as they won by 3 against San Fran, lost by 1 score to Dallas, took down San Fran once again by 3, and are currently coming off a 24-17 win over Philadelphia. And now they look forward to the final 3 games of the season, as they go down to Tennessee and take a trip home to take on Pittsburgh, and then they close out the year by coming to our house to try and even the season series. And we can also look at the remainder of the Cowboys schedule, as it matters to our seeding, and they have a tough stretch to end the year. They are currently reeling off back-to-back losses from the Eagles and the Bills, and now they have to go to Miami, defend Jerry World against the Lions, and then they close out against Washington. And now is the time where we can take a look at the news headlines from around the league for this week. It looks like the Titans' pass rush was the deciding factor in their division clash with the Texans, as they sacked C.J. Stroud 5 times. And that pass rush was highlighted by the return of Jeffrey Simmons from injury, which is a massive piece to have back for their push to the playoffs. Despite the poor year from Los Angeles, it looks like Cooper Kupp is still making the most out of the season, as he picked up 183 yards through the air in their win over the Commanders. The Bengals seem to be getting themselves back to playoff form, as they took down the Minnesota Vikings on the back of Joe Mixon's 3 rushing scores. And to finish it off, we have 2 draft prospect-specific stories to look at, as we look forward to the offseason post-playoffs. On the positive side, Alabama's tackle Luke Alexander takes home the award for best tackle in college football, so you may have to think about taking him to boost this line if he is available. And on the negative side, it looks as though USF safety Gordon Douglas got benched at halftime for his poor performance in their bowl game, so maybe we stray away from him. But now is the time we look forward to our upcoming matchup in which we travel to Chicago and take on the Bears. This is a team that has been the definition of average as they enter today at 7-7, and they don't have too many standout players across the board. But now, let's focus on who we do need to pay attention to heading into this game. Starting on offense, one of the best free agent pickups of the offseason is, of course, the former Viking, Dalvin Cook. He is one of those guys where it is just so difficult to get hands on him, as he has shown as he is coming off his 4th straight 1,000-yard Pro Bowl season, and he is a mere 71 yards from doing it for a 5th time. Then, in the receiving department, their number one option is, of course, DJ Moore. He was one of the main pieces of the trade with the Panthers to land on the number 1 pick, which would end up being Bryce Young. However, he could truly be a great steal for Chicago as he has found a way to produce in that poor Carolina offense. And while this unit isn't much better, if he continues this level of production, he could be a true weapon as they improve. On the defensive side, the middle of the field is locked down by the 25-year-old Tremaine Edmunds. He was a big splash signing for them during free agency as they signed him for 4 years, $72 million, and is so solid defending the run and the pass. And he could be at his hottest point yet, as he is coming off the back-to-back games in which he came away with an interception, and he's definitely looking to make it 3 in a row. And another free agent pickup for them was his linebacking partner, TJ Edwards. The former Eagle did an incredible job containing the run in Philly with tons of tackles, and he's been even better in this new system as he currently has 5 interceptions on the year, with his latest coming in their last game in which they took down the Browns. Now that we know who we are going up against, it's time to set our game plan for the week. Starting on defense, this rushing attack is dominant not only because of Cook, but also because of the mobility of quarterback Justin Fields. So with that being said, we're going to focus on defending the outside run. And on the offensive side, our game plan is less of a focus on them and more of a recognition of us. We understand we'll be starting our backup QB this week, but we also know that Tyson Williams has been on fire these past few weeks, and on top of that, James Conner will officially make his return this week. So with that being said, we will be pounding the rock down the middle. Before we get to the goals for the week, we held our weekly press conference with the media, and a reporter said, "Coach, protection for the quarterback was a major issue this past week as we suffered a lot of sacks. Where do those struggles start?" And we responded by saying it all starts up front. The number one job of the O-line is to keep the quarterback clean, and as our laundry guy can attest, that didn't happen at all last week. So they need to be better. The reporter followed by asking then, how do we get the group back on track? To which we responded by saying it's important to take things 1 week at a time, to stay the course, and not overreact when you stray off the path a little bit. We didn't show up in that department last week, but it's only one game, and we understand that. And after that comment, the offensive line was not happy being called out, and they will all be losing 5 morale because of it. Our goal is obviously to beat the Bears, but if we can limit the sacks allowed this week, we can earn our O-line a temporary boost. And now it is time for us to set our goals for this upcoming matchup. First, we want to prevent them from getting any sacks. We just left our press conference in which we emphasized how our line needs to have a bounce-back game, and Chicago doesn't have the most dominant pass rush unit. Next up, we want to get 400-plus offensive yards. We had a complete offensive masterclass last week against one of the best defenses in the league, so if we can replicate that against this weaker defense, we should have a very good shot of walking out with the win. After that, we want to allow 20 points or less. While they do have a very poor passing attack, their ground game is one of the best in the league, and we can't bank on locking that run game down for the entire game. And lastly, we want to get over 200 yards on the ground. We are making that the big focus of this game, and we might as well see how dominant we can be on the ground as we head into the playoffs in just a few weeks. We then completed our practices for the week, and we saw some more growth out of some of our young talents, starting with our hybrid safety Isaiah Simmons. Although we've had our disagreements when it comes to contract negotiations this year, no one can argue that he has played so well this year as he has almost exclusively dropped down as a linebacker this year, and today he improved in his play rec, pursuit, and zone coverage. After that, we have our second-round pick, BJ Ojulari. He has had a phenomenal rookie year thus far, sitting near the top of the Defensive Rookie of the Year race, and his development continued today as he improved in his awareness, finesse moves, pursuit, and zone coverage. And lastly, we have our second round pick from the year prior, Trey McBride. He has really broken out in his sophomore season, majority of the snaps from Zach Ertz, making so many big time plays, and as he comes off a 3-touchdown performance, he grows further in his break tackle, catching, deep and medium route running. But it would not all be positive for him as he actually suffered a high ankle sprain in practice, and while our training staff has deemed it extremely minor, as a precaution, he will be unavailable for this upcoming game in Chicago. But with that, we have discussed everything we have needed to for this week. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn those notifications down below, and we will see you all next time as we head to Chicago, which I'm hearing will be a little bit chilly, to take on the Bears.